mic on. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about lost and finding a personal story. And I talk a lot about branding and finding stories because that's what I do for a living. But I never actually looked at my own personal story and said, well, what is my story and my legacy going to be after I'm gone, and what are people going to want to talk about? And the first thing a story starts with is a story arc. And a story arc is, the purpose of a story arc is to move a character or a situation from one state, in other words, to effect change. And my story has to start when I was actually really young, because I debated creationalism, and I said, and when I was in children's ministry, that the world was not created by God, it was created by science. I was very unpopular, and I was told I was going to hell. So I expected that it's okay, I'm just going to end up in Dante's Inferno, but I was told engineers were going there, so I'd be okay, that we'd have air conditioning. But I'm my own character in my story, and characters play a really important role in a story. And Aristotle made this big statement that for tragedy is a representation not of human allies, but that, you know, the character plays a story, and I'm my own character. So I said, where am I in my story today? And I said, well, you know, I work 20 hours a day. I work 7 days a week because I had my own company. I taught both in continuing ed and professionally in undergrad. I was on a bunch of nonprofit committees and boards, and I did all this stuff. And soon enough, I really had no time. I was sleeping 3 hours a night, and my doctor said, hey, Brad, that's not healthy. You will die in your early 30s if you don't make some kind of concrete change. So that brings me to peripeteia, and this is the reversal of circumstances, or a turning point. And I realized that something had to give, so I decided to give it all up. I sold my company. I resigned from every nonprofit board I was on. I don't volunteer at anything right now. And I stopped teaching. And those were really big things for me, because everything that I listed off was really important to me in life. But the thing is, all those things that were important to me were actually killing me, ironically. So I said, all right, I have to go to my own personal sweat lodge, and I need to do a walkabout. But I don't have the money to journey out west. So I'm going to do this in a digital way, and I'm going to look outwardly in and start to read a lot. And I said, maybe I should give faith another shot here, and maybe, you know, my first experience with it wasn't the right one. So I started reading, and a couple books that really affected how I looked at my life and my story. One was Prodigal God, and one was Donald Miller's A Million Years and 1,000 Steps. And then this How Will You Measure Your Life takes business principles to how you're measuring and looking at your life inwardly. And then I really like this Everybody Wants to Go to Heaven, but No One Wants to Die. And that was a very altruistic read. And I said, but I'm a new age kind of guy. I like to listen to things too. So I turned to TED, because really smart people talk at TED, and they share very interesting ideas. And there were two ideas that stuck with me. One was A.J. Jacobs, and he took and said, I'm going to live a year in the life of the Bible literally as possible. And it was a really interesting outcome, but he found that there were so many laws and rules in the Bible, but really it broke down to taking them to a modern approach. And then this other piece, so once I had this period of self-enlightenment, I like to call, now I have to overcome fear. And Donald Miller says that fear is a manipulation of an emotional trick that tricks us into leading a boring life. In my biggest fear, I have a fear of heights, but my biggest fear is death. I don't like to talk about it. I don't like to think about it. I don't like to think about things in terms of ending. And I knew that if I was going to put my life into perspective, and if I was going to find my personal story, I would have to overcome death. Someone who has had a profound impact on this to me is my friend Brian Ware. 3.5 years ago, my friend Brian was diagnosed with colon cancer and decided to share his story with us on Facebook. And Brian did this in a really elegant way and made me see that death could be accepted. And then I was watching a movie recently, Act of Valor, and they end the movie with a quote by Chief Tecumseh. And it says, "So live your life that fear or death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their view, and demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long in its purpose in the service of your people. Prepare a noble death song for when the day you go over the great divide." And that last slide that you just saw was Brian. Brian passed away last Monday, unfortunately. But when he went, he posted a day before he went, he said, "This is my last update. There's still a lot of good in the world. Go find it." And I found a new sense of faith, and I'm still writing what my new life is going to look like. And it's a new beginning. And I'm telling you that, you know, I didn't see it. I was so caught up in the day of now that I wasn't concerned with what was going to be my legacy, or that, you know, death could happen tomorrow, just like it did for my friend Brian. So, you know, find your story.